The big question on fans' minds in the 107th and final season is whether the long-awaited romance between Bellamy Blake and Clarke Griffin will actually leave the realms of fanfiction and become canon. Though their bond has remained platonic for the past 6 seasons, that hasn't stopped fans from championing this ship since the beginning of the series, and honestly, I'm kind of right there with them. I'm Lindsay MacDonald, and this is the case for Bellamy and Clarke. Exhibit A, they're Endgame in the books. The 100 is actually based on a novel series by Cass Morgan. In the books, Bellamy and Clarke developed feelings for one another very early on, and they even got engaged at the end of the last book. That's about as endgame as it gets. The 100 TV series has deviated pretty far from the plot of the books, but Bellamy and Clarke's relationship has remained a cornerstone throughout every season. If the series is going to pay one last tribute to the books in its final season, having Bellamy and Clarke end up together would certainly be an epic way to go about it.
You follow?
Exhibit B, the foundation is rock solid. When the 100 first premiered, Bellamy and Clarke had some serious chemistry, even though showrunner Jason Rothenberg reportedly never intended to write them romantically. Natural chemistry like that is really hard to deny though, and it continued to build, especially because Clarke and Bellamy were constantly struggling for control of the group early on in the series. Enemies to lovers ain't a trope for nothing, you know.
Brave princess.
In later seasons, Bellamy and Clarke learned to put their differences aside and built a beautiful friendship where they really relied on each other, which was when this relationship went from good to great. When hard decisions needed to be made, when wars needed to be waged, Bellamy and Clarke faced it together, and their unshakable partnership has become the beating heart of the show. They've both had other romances over the years, but there's a reason it's always come down to Bellamy and Clarke at the end of the day. No one else can really understand the pressures of leadership or the hard choices they've had to make in the name of survival. All of the major moments that have defined these characters, losing their parents on the Ark, pulling the lever in Mount Weather, discovering an entirely new solar system, it's all stuff that they've shared. When it really comes down to it, they've always supported each other, which has only brought them closer together. The bond Bellamy and Clarke share is one of a kind, and it's absolutely why so many fans fell in love with this ship.
Seeing their faces every day, it's just gonna remind me of what I did to get them here.
What we did.
Exhibit C. The subtext is barely subtext. There are plenty of moments over the course of the series that have implied that Bellamy and Clarke are more to each other than just BFFs. Not so subtle pieces of dialogue or meaningful moments peppered here and there have left us with some serious hope that there's more to Bellarke than just platonic love. Most recently in season 6, Clarke was body snatched by Josephine Lightbourne. She underwent a risky procedure that stopped her heart so she could regain control of her body. For a few minutes, it looked like Clarke was actually dead, but Bellamy refused to give up on her. He kept administering CPR and begged her to keep fighting.
Clarke, I need you. Maddie needs you.
It was his voice that eventually pulled Clarke back to the surface and saved her life. You are absolutely allowed to believe that was only because they were such great friends, but Bellamy literally pulling Clarke back from the brink of death sounds way more like an epic soulmates moment to me. The list of tender moments like this goes on and on. Writing each other's names on the list of survivors for the bunker, Clarke radioing Bellamy every single day of their separation, the head of the heart speech, like, come on.
You inspire them because of this, but the only way to make sure we survive is if you use this too.
Both his head and his heart love you, girl, can't you see that? I sure can, which brings us to Exhibit D, Bellarke is not off the table yet. For years, fans have been asking showrunner Jason Rothenberg, as well as stars Bob Morley and Eliza Taylor, whether this romance will actually happen, and they've always sort of avoided a definitive answer. When TV Guide asked Rothenberg whether he and the writers had considered a romantic turn for Bellarke in season 7, or whether fans should temper their expectations, he had this to say. I think that expectations should always be tempered for every fandom in this show. I won't spoil anything, but I will say that this is a show about family and about these characters taking care of each other and not wanting to lose each other. As far as non-answers go, that's a pretty damn good one, with a fair amount of both doubt and hope for this couple. The fact that there's apparently anything to spoil at all preserves our hope that Bellarke is not entirely off the table for the final season. In fact, I can already sort of see the path that could lead us there. Bellamy was kidnapped in the season 7 premiere, and since Bob Morley took some time off while the season was filming, he's going to be MIA for a little while. Just like the threat of losing Clarke in season 6 was almost too much for Bellamy to bear, taking Bellamy away from Clarke and putting him in desperate need of a rescue might be the push Clarke needs to re-examine her own feelings for him. Absence is supposed to make the heart grow fonder, right?
I can't lose her.
This brings us to Exhibit E. It's now or never. The most obvious reason to make the case for Bellarke right now is that we're reaching the end of the series. Every character is headed towards their endgame in season 7, and final seasons are absolutely the time to pay off slow burn romances. Just look at The West Wing's Josh and Donna or Teen Wolf Stiles and Lydia. When audiences spend years and years waiting for will they won't they couples to get together, nothing feels quite as satisfying as realizing, oh my god, it's finally happening. More importantly, knowing that Clarke and Bellamy's stories are coming to an end, how can you not root for a happy ending for two characters that have gone through as much hardship and heartbreak as they have? The 100 is a pretty bleak show, but this isn't out of the question. Rothenberg told TV Guide that he wanted the show's final season to have a more optimistic message than it has before, which gives me hope that Bellamy and Clarke might get a happy ending after all.
Bellamy, I need you.
And yes, I do believe that happy ending can and should be each other. Bellamy and Clarke are about as perfect for each other as it gets, and they've got a pretty passionate fan base waiting with bated breath to see what happens between them. As we make our way through the 100's final season, I'll be tempering my Bellarke expectations as Rothenberg advised, but I'm still holding out hope that a Bellarke endgame is in sight. I've made my case for Bellarke, but just in case you need a little bit more convincing, cue reel of Bellarke hugs. Doesn't that just make you feel good inside? Do you think Bellamy and Clarke should end up together? Let us know in the comments below.